Welcome, everybody. This is highly unusual. I've taken over George's sit, and
Because you think
pretty warm.
you think you can do it so much better.
We'll find out. We'll find out after the show. But we've got Doc here. He's been quite an inspiration, especially for me. You know, I've known him since we were little kids. I went to school with his kids, and I used to see him. And he used to walk around in a bow tie. And I was still in primary school, and I picked up that habit from him. So he's been quite an inspiration. And you still do quite a bit for our, primary school.
Avondale Primary School.
Yeah.
Yes, I do. I'm Tinashe, very interested in education, especially at that primary level and even ECD. I think that's where the key is. We got to catch our kids young and inspire them and give them confidence at that level. That's why I'm interested in primary education.
Wow, fantastic. So that's really why we're having this show, is to actually get to understand the doc, some of his principles, his philosophy, his ideas. Some of them, I disagree with, but I think the banter and just, having debates is something that's very important, especially for our audience. So maybe to kick off, how does a kid from Nyazura turn out to be a doctor, a world-renowned doctor, and such a beautiful home and all these ideas? How does that happen?
Yes, Tinashe. I come from a very humble background. My father worked for a Jewish family. My mother was a housewife in Nyazura in the rural areas. The key thing was she was very keen for us to be educated. That's the key thing I learned from my mother, how important education is. And believe it or not, we were able to read and write before we went to school because of my mother.
Wow.
Yes, she was that inspired on education. So she instilled that within us. And we were 3 boys, then 4 girls. There's 7 of us. Thank God, all of us are still alive.
What number are you in?
I'm number 2. So my brother is here with me. I look after him because he was the most intelligent in the family and very articulate and very charismatic. And he joined the war when he was in his early 20s. So he left because my mother died when I was in high school. And he was the breadwinner. So off he went to Mozambique. And I became the breadwinner at 21. I was at university studying medicine.
Wow.
Which means now I had to look after my young brother and 4 young sisters. And the eldest of the girls was 12 years old. And the youngest was 6 months old when my mother died.
How did you choose medicine?
The way I chose medicine was because my father's employers, were Jewish, the Buffensteins, had family friends with the McGregors. The father was always Scottish, but the mother was Jewish. And they were family friends. And their son, Alan McGregor, who became a professor in the UK, was the first head boy of Waterford School in Swaziland. Is now part of these United World Colleges, which are all over the world now. He was the first head boy. So they asked him to see whether he could help me to get into this school after my O-levels.
All right.
And I went to Norway Mission in Umrewa.
Yes.
Yeah, so I was the pioneer, Form 1, Form 2, Form 3, Form 4 at Norway Mission. And then I ended up in this private school in Form 5 and Form 6. And this school opened my mind. I think most of my thinking today was influenced by that school because it was very multiracial. Every race was represented. But not only that, there was a lot of politics at that time because Mozambique became independent at that time. And the South Africans, like Mandela's 2 children, Zinze, Zeni, they were in school with me. Walter Sisulu, Linda Sisulu now, the minister, she was my head girl at school.
Yeah.
So what is it, 75, 76?
There was 73, 74. And so the white Africans were there where the Afrikaners were on the left wing. So it was a melting pot for ideas and for races. So we discussed everything, racism, politics.
So if you were to go back in 74, what were your opinions like then?
74 when I left the school?
Well, just before you left the school. Suppose this was...
I became so open-minded.
Okay.
First of all, on race, I realized my time in that school that no race was better than me as a black man, as a black person.
Okay.
This was a myth.
Because you were competing with them.
Well,
and you could tell.
because I'd grown up in Rhodesia,
All right.
which was quite racist. You go to this school, which is multiracial, you see all these races, you sit on the same desk, you write exams, and you do better than them. Then I realized, what nonsense was this racism? So I despise racists. And I think people are racist because they're scared of black people.
Or of
And
any other race.
Yeah. Well, George, the truth is, every other race on earth, they look down on black people. We're at the bottom of the rung. That's the truth. But my problem with us is that we almost make it justified for other people to look down on us because we don't seem to respect ourselves. We don't seem to love ourselves. We're trying to be like somebody else. We think these other people are better than us, their hair, their skin, or whatever they do. Not realizing that we have it all. Because if you go back to history, the pyramids, for instance, mathematics, for instance, sciences, these were born in Africa by black Africans. But we don't know the history. You talk about innovations. I have a book on innovations by black people. Things like blood transfusion, the washing machine, traffic lights, and so on. And they've seen the GPS. That's a black woman. People don't know this. So we're not as thick, as stupid as we're made us to believe. Or we almost believe it ourselves that other people are better than us. That's not true. That's where I'm coming from.
Okay.
And this, I think my thinking was molded at my time at Dr. School.
As a 17, 18-year-old, that's when these opinions or
Yes,
these
were
ideas
formulated. Yes,
were formulated.
Yes. And I realized I was just like any other race, and therefore the things I do today, like dancing, art collection, scuba diving, and all this, I just realized I was as good as anybody, and I could enjoy the world.
So it actually
enjoy life.
opened up more opportunities for you.
Yes, that's what it did. And my mission today is to open up this thinking to other people that I come in contact with, but more so our children and our grandchildren. They should have this mindset that they're just as good as anybody else, and they don't have to imitate other races. They shouldn't do that.
Tell us a bit more about the UZ in the 70s. What was it like?
It was fantastic. In a way, I remember my medical school, we were 52 in my class, and we were only about 8 or 9 black people. So we were in the minority. And I remember vividly, there were some professors who would never address us or look at us. They would just address the white students, and that was it. So you felt it. You were insignificant. Your presence was not acknowledged. And I've got vivid memories of that, which meant, and we knew in every year, one black student would fail and would have to drop out. So we're all looking among the 8 of us, who's going to drop out? That was the question.
There was a quota system of dropping out.
Oh, yes. So we were working so hard. And the funny thing is, because we worked so hard, when I went overseas to specialize, and I remember...
that's a very interesting story in
Yeah,
itself. Because you wanted to do something else, and then
and they
you
ended
met
up
someone
nice.
and you ended
Yeah.
up...
So when I went to Scotland to specialize, we were given an exam, and we were looking at slides. It was anatomy, histology, which was basic sciences. And I came tops of all the people there from all over the world. And they said to me, "Did you work in a lab or something?" I said, "No." "So how do you know all this stuff?" I said, "Because of the medical school I went to." And the professor here of anatomy was Scottish. So I said, "Well, I was under a Scottish professor who was very racist. So I had to work so hard." and then that was very funny. Yeah. But that's what happened. So when we went overseas, we could pass our exams just like this.
So you were always going against the grain.
I can't say, it just happened. And I found myself in these situations, and that's how it happened.
Proving people wrong.
Yeah.
And wanting to do exactly what everyone else is doing and being the top of your class.
I can't say I planned it or was clever. You find yourself in these situations, and you just have to carry on. I mean, what happened then is happening now. I know when I speak some of my ideas, people think, I'm being controversial or contentious, but that's not the intention really. It's just to share my experiences, from my travels, from my exposure, and some things I think, oh no, we shouldn't do this as a people. We don't have to do this. We have so much which we don't realize that we have. That's why I need to
So
share
you
this.
graduated at the UZ, which was racist, as
Yeah.
you say.
Yes.
And then you leave for Scotland.
Yeah, I went to Blue Whale, worked a little bit, and then I went to Scotland to specialize. And that time you're right. I wanted to be a gynecologist.
Yeah.
I just love the women. And I thought,
That hasn't changed.
yeah, I thought that is what I should do. So when I went overseas, I got a scholarship from WHO to specialize. And I thought to myself, wow, I want to do Obsingani. So the exams you could do for Obsingani, you could do a fellowship exam like for surgery, FRCS in surgery. So I did that, and I did the MRSOJ at the same time. And I did another exam which qualified me as if I did an MBSB in England. So I was fully registered in the UK. And then I was tossing and turning whether to do Obsingani because they offered me a job in a very big hospital in ophthalmology. So I was tossing and
So
turning and thinking,
ophthalmology is
that's eyes.
the eyes. Right?
Yeah. So I was thinking, should I go to eyes or should I Obsingani? It was just a natural for me. I knew after my 6 months in Obsingani in Mpilo, I could do the final exam in England and pass it. It was just like, I didn't have to read even. I knew it. It was in there. But ophthalmology is difficult because it's scientific. I had to put some effort. So I had a registrar, a senior guy who was Indian, Ravi Goyal. We're still friends today. And then I had a friend from Nepal. So Ravi Goyal, being a senior guy, he liked me a lot. So he always called me the black man. And we called him the chief. And my friend from Nepal, he called him the yellow man. So we were sitting in a pub like this drinking. So I said,
Our generation could never have given each other such names. It would have been politically incorrect.
but you see, we were friends and we understood it. So one day I said, we were drinking and I said, Chief, I'm still debating. I've got my exams. I can do Obsingani tomorrow. And I'm thinking, should I go back to Obsingani or I stay with ophthalmology? So he looks at me and he says, black man, I know you so well. You stay above the waist. That's what he said. So I said, okay, Chief, I hear you. And we became such good friends. Was one day he rings me, because I said to him, he said to me, he's the one who pushed me. And he said, black man, I know you. Because at that time, the British would fail the fellowship exams several times. Somebody's done it for 3 times, 5 times, 6 times. And they said, no, black man, I know you. You go to London, do the diploma, and I went. He pushed me and I passed. I came back and he says, 3 months, go for the final fellowship. Just like that. It was just like happening without me controlling it. So when did I pass? They said, see, I told you, black man, you got it. And the British couldn't understand. They said, from Africa, you just come here and do these exams? We are hesitating to write the exam. So that's what happened. Then he said, black man, I know when you go back to Zimbabwe, you'll forget me. I said, Chief, no. When I go back to Zimbabwe, I'm going to invite you. All you have to do is fly yourself to Harare and I'll take care of you. So after a couple of years, he phoned me and he said, black man, I said, Chief, come over. He came with his wife, Savita. She just passed away, actually. So he came back here. So, he went to Vic Falls, went to Nyanga, and so on. He came here. He's been here 3 times. And he's the one who said, black man, I must show you India. That's why I went to India. He flew from London.
For India.
Yeah, so now I go to India more than he does. So that's what happened, and that's why, so here we are.
So this natural curiosity, seeing the world, Scotland, India, I know you're in love with Cuba as well, the culture, the dancing, all this. Would you say it's the same, when you talk to a kid who's living in Bari, in Highfields, or West Yurt in the rural areas, how do they capture that imagination that their life can be beyond? Because this was before you were popular,
Sure.
How can they transpose themselves from their lived condition to this world out there?
Tinashe, that's a very good question. And I say to every young person I come across today that, listen, where you come from, your circumstances, your background, it's important, but it's not the determining factor of how far or high you go. We start from here and let's move forward. And you're right to talk about curiosity. I think all of us, at any level in our lives, should be curious. Whatever it is, could it be finance? Could be, I mean, I've had an amazing life, whether it's scuba diving or it's dancing or it's art collection, because I realized I was curious. I see something I don't know, I want to find out. What is it? And I want to get involved, I want to learn about it. And if I don't like it, okay. But if I think there's some value in it, I pursue it. I think all young people, even old people, should be curious. I think as long as you're alive, you're breathing, you got some life in you, you should be curious
So
all the
as
time.
parents, we should cultivate that
Oh, yes.
curiosity
Oh,
amongst
very much. Among
our
kids.
little kids.
Oh, yes.
So, you know, there's an argument that the first place where your curiosity is somewhat stimulated is in reading books.
Yes.
Do you remember the first book you read?
It's funny you say
Nobody
that.
remembers the first
No,
book
no,
you
no.
read.
But, you know, my father used to tell my relatives, and even Elizabeth, who looks after me, or other people, they said, this guy, when he was young, he was always reading. He'd get an old newspaper in the village, and I'd go through the whole newspaper. Even some newspaper just flying around, I'd get hold of it and I'd read through. I didn't know that, but my father knew
Picked
that.
it up.
I think my
Yeah.
mother told him. I was reading everything I could come across. So I think we need to develop and
Culture of reading.
inculcate this culture of reading in our young people. Okay, today there are lots of other media, but please read, and be curious and follow up on things. Just learn everything. You can then decide what's important for you, what not. But please, we must read. This is the only way we can catch up with other races. Otherwise, we're always behind.
So I want to go back. You started to talk about you were the second born.
Yes.
Then your brother went to war. But I was just doing the maths in my head. There's a gap, right? So by the time your brother went to war, you were probably already in England or about to go to England.
No. You see, okay, I'm in Form 5. My mother dies. The only breadwinner is my brother. So I come back after Form 6. And my brother is living in Highfield with my young brother. And my sisters are in the rural areas. So my brother was deep into politics. And as I
How
said,
old was he?
maybe early 20s, maybe 21, 22. And he was used to move around with Edson Stolle, who then disappeared.
okay.
Oh, yeah. He was not. Oh, yeah. My brother was very charismatic. He became the leader of the youth movement. I think that was the ANC. And I remember vividly, there was a big rally in Highfield at Machipisa. And my brother was addressing the whole congregation. Oh,
Thousands of
yeah.
people.
Oh, yeah. And the police came and they killed 13 people. They wanted to kill my brother. And he escaped. And then that evening, he was friends with the young brother of the Chief Justice, the late Chief Justice Chijgausi
Chijgausi.
Naboni, who became an ambassador. They were close friends like this. And that evening, Bonnie and my brother were seeing the injured people at Harrow Hospital. Then they got nabbed, they got arrested, and they went into prison. And at that time, my brother was working for Anglo American. He was, the Jewish family were looking after him, and they liked his intelligence and his charisma. And I'm almost sure if my brother had pursued that line, he'd have been maybe CEO of Anglo American. The guy was just brilliant, yeah. But he decided to go into politics, and it was against my wishes. I said, you know what? Now look, we are a family, a humble family. We need to get going, not involved in politics. But he wouldn't have it. So once he was arrested, got bail. Then the next thing, he skipped the border to Mozambique. So I'm left.
This is what year?
This was 75. So I'm the second born, and maybe I'm about 2021, and now I have responsibility over my young brother and my 40 young sisters. Yeah. So
Were there payouts at University of Rhodesia?
that
then?
helped me a lot.
Okay.
But the payout, plus I then got a job with MTC, Marshall Turf Club. I was selling tickets. So I'd go to medical school
university
and then sell
and
tickets.
working.
Oh, yes. And with that, I was able to send my young sisters to Noah Mission where I'd been. And so I took one by one, and they all went to Noah Mission, except for the young one was very young. And that's how it happened. So I I was thrust with responsibility when I was 21. I became their father and their mother at that age.
Wow.
And I'm so um, uh, grateful because they've grown up. And one of them is just here from Washington. And the other one, the one who was 12 years old when my mother died, is a professor in the States. And the one who's here is number 3. She's got a big finance job. She did an MBA in Washington. And then the other 2 did degrees in nursing in England. And my young brother, he's now in Washington. He's becoming a psychologist. So everybody's kind of done well. They bought homes, wherever they are. The only one was my brother went to the war because he was in that group who wanted to change the service system in Mozambique with Chuhuri, Gumbo, Ahmad Ziripi.
He was part of the
Those guys. Oh, he
Yeah.
was.
Okay.
He was. And
a true socialist.
yeah, you see, my brother was, I mean, bless him. He's so kind-hearted and so honest and so genuine. I knew he was not made for politics. He wasn't. So I was not surprised when he got arrested. He was actually in Newsweek as a prisoner. I don't know what he went through, but when he came back, he was psychiatric.
Yeah.
So he's on medication.
Very traumatic.
It's very, very sad. And for me, when I observed this, I said to myself, my brother went to fight, for what he believed in. In other words, creation of a better society for everyone, And here he is, he's almost like a cabbage. And he's lucky because I'm his brother, I can look after him. So he's a decent life. Otherwise, it'd be maybe dead by now, or in the areas or on the streets. So that's kind of sad, but this is life. You got to move on.
So just so that we really curate this and make everybody understand. So the thing that I've picked up is curiosity.
Yes.
The second thing that I've picked up is hard work.
Yes.
Just putting in the effort. The third thing I've picked up is competitiveness. Are you naturally competitive?
Not naturally. I don't compete against anyone. I compete against myself. Yeah, myself. I mean, if you have a big house, that's your business. Good luck to you. If you have a big car, good for you. I don't need to buy a big car like you or a big house like you. I don't need that. I have my goals or my ideals. As you know, I like investing. And it's not that I just want to make money. No. Yes, I do like to make money, but it's because there are things that I like to achieve.
So you compete against yourself?
Yes.
So you set a goal and then you compete against that goal and you set the next.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. For instance, I strongly believe that we can create a better society, that everybody must be given an opportunity. So the wealth I create, I like to use it for scholarships, to give youngsters who don't have a chance, to give them a chance to go to school and achieve. And maybe...
Well, that's where I was trying to drive you at is I want to separate what is personality.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the things that you've said have a lot to do with just who you are as a person.
Yes.
And what we could do. So we could open up the opportunities to as many people as possible.
True.
And the cream will rise to the top.
Yeah.
People like you, the minute they're given the same opportunities, they will get those opportunities and drive those opportunities. Is that your philosophy? Is that your...
Yes. I'm a strong believer in the creation of almost an egalitarian society. That's why we talk about Cuba or even places like Singapore
I'm
or
always
Finland.
curious in your contradictions of socialism and your hedonistic. Sorry to use the word hedonistic, but
well, why are you sorry? You're only sorry.
It's always a contradiction. It's always a contradiction.
I don't think so.
Well, you can help me. You can help me. How do you sympathize with
hedonism
socialism?
is just about like enjoying life.
Tinashe, it's all about these isms that people get stuck to. And I remember Lee Kuan Yew in Singapore says, we don't worry about the isms like socialism or capitalism. The only ism we worry about is pragmatism. Does it work or not? So because I'm not a politician and I'm not into politics and I don't want to be a politician, I'm not worried about being labeled a socialist or capitalist because I'm neither of those. Okay. I'm just a human being trying to do his best. So I just think that we should create a society where every individual gets the best opportunity to realize their very best.
Okay.
That's what I believe in.
From Scotland, you come back
Yes.
to Zimbabwe. And that's in the 90s now, right?
Yeah, 90. Yeah.
90s. Because I remember when you came back.
Yes.
And you had changed. You're
Yes.
not the same
No.
man.
No.
When you left, you were not wearing bow ties.
No.
When you came back, you were wearing bow ties.
Yes.
Would you love to just elaborate on that?
Yeah, the bow tie issue actually didn't start in England, but in the States. I went to visit. You see, that Jewish family, we became close.
Very close.
We're still very
Okay.
close. So their son became an immigration lawyer in the States, top guy. He was the president of the immigration lawyers in the States. And he became very wealthy. Not only was he a lawyer with his firm, but he bought lots of land, lots of farms and horses and so on. So he invited me to the States. That was my first visit to the States. And he attached me to Emory University, Department of Ophthalmology. So I went there and I saw this guy who wore bow ties. And he was very impressed. I said, that's a good style. That's how he started. Talk about the curiosity. I said, this looks good. That's what I learned from the bow tie issue.
But interesting. So I didn't realize you only came back in the 90s.
Oh, yeah.
Why didn't you come back after independence?
No. But independence that's when I was younger. I qualified as a doctor at independence. So I was doing a house job. And then
But there must have been a massive, all your colleagues, Zimbabwean colleagues,
Were
around that
coming
time
back.
were getting on planes, coming back. And you decided that you
in
were going to stay out there.
the
a bit longer.
80s.
Yeah.
Well, no, because you see, I was just a junior doctor, I had to specialize. So I'd go overseas
right.
to specialize. So I worked a little bit, and I think I left this country in 1984. And in 2 years, by 86, I'd finished all my exams. In 2 years, I did all the exams I had to do. And then I stayed there just to work and get some experience.
Sorry. So you'd left in the 70s?
No.
No,
No, 84.
84.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah,
Sorry.
in 1980, I was just a junior guy. I was
So you'd stayed until
qualified.
84,
Yeah.
and everything was looking rosy.
Yeah.
And then you decided, I'm going to...
No, I didn't want to
Curiosity.
specialize. I wanted to do something else. Yeah.
I think curiosity. It's
Yeah, and also I had
that's
to
a
further
bedrock.
myself, further my education also. I had to do that.
Well, you could have done it, yeah.
No. Oh, this is the thing, you see, there was no training for ophthalmology here.
All right.
The fortune I had
then you wanted to be
when-
You're a guy.
a guy now.
yeah, I wanted to. So when I went, I said, but the scholarship I got was for ophthalmology.
All right.
Yeah, but they were looking for ophthalmologists. I got the scholarship. I said, I'll take the scholarship, go over there, do both, then switch over. But as it happened, I stayed in. And when I came back, there was virtually nothing in ophthalmology. You know, it was all very old-fashioned, no operating microscopes, no lasers, machines. So I had the opportunity to grow the department. So what I did was to start a training for ophthalmologists at the University of Zimbabwe. That was one of the things that I did. Yeah.
Fantastic.
And so
This is now in the 90s.
in the 90s, maybe 92, 93, yeah.
Okay, so this is even more curious. So you started ophthalmology training.
Yes.
You opened your own surgery.
Yes.
Would you like to tell us a bit about that, especially within that particular epoch in the 90s, which is very entrepreneurial? So you come back from the 80s, you come back into the 90s, and there's this entrepreneurial spirit that's going on. And
I was very lucky because when I came back in 1990, there was a group called Surgical Eye Expeditions, Sea International, which was based in Santa Barbara. So they came to do an eye camp, in the rural areas. And I became very close friends with the founder, Dr. Harry Brown. And he came to visit Zimbabwe about 3-4 times, and I went to visit Santa Barbara. So we became very close friends. So he did help a lot, bringing other specialists over here, helping us with source of equipment. And I remember I went to San Francisco to address the Rotarians to get funding to develop this department. I also went to Holland with the Lions to also get funding for equipment. So for me, it was just so much happening, and I was running around a lot. And then we started Eyes for Africa, where we went to the rural areas and operate. So we went all over Zimbabwe, we went to Zambia, we went to Namibia, we went to Angola, I even went to Vietnam to operate with my friends from the States. So it was a very active time. But now we started a department. So the idea was to build a tertiary center, a referral center where patients could be sent and they could get all these services that we didn't have before. And also to start the training, we could train specialists. And the first specialists who trained, actually 6 of them. I remember vividly, there was no single Zimbabwean. They were all foreigners.
All right.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Ophthalmology, because it was looked at as just a specialty for old people. Everything was slow and all that. So one of my jobs was to market ophthalmology. So we managed to do that. Now, of course, it's one of the most popular
Sought after,
specialties. Yeah. So we were able to do that. And then, of course, later on now, it'd been...
What sort of challenges did you face starting your surgery, starting a department?
Well, it's always kind of some kind of politics. Some people believe in it, some people don't believe in you. You know how it is. Always
So you
people
have to navigate that.
Oh, you have to navigate that. But I must say, we had lots of support from banks.
Really?
Okay.
Oh yeah, ZB, NMB Shagarara
Yeah.
gave us
Yeah.
some funding. NMB, guys like James Mshoren, Julius Marconi.
Well, that was the period, right?
It was, and it was exciting.
entrepreneurial.
Oh yeah, and
There was
people were supporting Ice for Africa, and then the overseas people. That was the Rotarians, the Lions, so was all of us traveling a lot and trying to source funding for developing the department, and that worked very well. So in a way, I was very lucky. And then, of course, then I started my practice, and then, of course, recently, at that time, in fact, funny enough, I said to the guys, we need to develop a school of optometry, glasses like you're wearing, because we didn't have that. And I got a reply from, they call themselves ZOA, Zimbabwe Optometric Association. And that time it was run by, the other people. So they said, oh, no, we don't need that here. Anybody who wants to train should go to South Africa or go to the UK, which was actually quite rude. So I said, okay. Then they chose a black Zimbabwean to be president of the ZOA to stop me in my tracks.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And they found me, this guy. And they said, Guramatunhu, what do you want to do? You want to cause confusion in our profession. That's what he said. And I said, but we need to train our people here. These guys are going to go back to wherever they came from. And they didn't get it. Anyway, we couldn't start the training because I needed their support to start the training. So when I became chairman of Bindura University, I had the opportunity because then I had to start an optometry company, Optinova, which is really growing, rapidly right now. And I used Optinova to have a private and public partnership with the Bindura University to start this school of optometry. So the optometrists that I had, I flew to Ghana to recruit optometrists. I flew to Malawi to recruit optometrists.
Malawi had optometrists and we didn't.
Oh, yeah, because these guys here didn't want to have it. And then I flew to the Philippines. And so we have a Filipino lady working for us in Optinova. So I had all these different, but no Zimbabweans.
Okay. So there's a running theme or thread that I want to pick on. So we're picking up now in the 90s, you are actually entrepreneurial, which is a running thread. But there's another one that you pick up in the 90s, which is investing.
Yes.
Tell us the first time you actually invested and why.
Before we go into that, you're new at this thing. You're sitting in the middle, right? Ranga thinks we should go for a break.
All right. Okay, let's go for a break. And, welcome back. George, you're quite right. I'm new at this. And I was thoroughly enjoying our discussion. Yeah, I forgot the time. Yeah. So sorry, audience. Sorry, everybody. But we're back. And this is quite an enthralling discussion. And I'm quite enjoying it. So we know you as the doctor. So we're now in the 90s. You're entrepreneurial. But you pick up another habit, which is you actually start investing. Would you like to tell us how you actually started investing and why you started?
I guess I have to attribute this to my nephew, Farai Rodzi, we're very close. And he kept on asking me to invest in stocks. And that's how I started. And then, of course, they decided to form Interfin Merchant Bank. And they asked me to be the founding chairman. So, in fact, Interfin Merchant Bank was founded in my house.
Really?
Yes, and it was myself, my nephew Farai, his friends Mbama Ngwende, Jerry Tsodzai, and Tim Chiganze, 5 of us.
Mm.
Yes. And so I kind of got involved in finance. But I still had my grounding, coming from a humble background with kind of simple principles and ethics. I just felt the young guys wanted like a big house like yesterday, a big car like yesterday, and I was not comfortable. And I strongly felt that the funds we had belonged to the depositors. We had to make profits and then divide, but with different thinking anyway. So I resigned immediately.
Okay.
Yeah, but I had the thinking now about finance for investing.
They opened up a new world to you.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
And being curious, I pursued that.
Yeah.
And then there's that guy on the stock exchange, Ray Turner, the white guy, and I got to learn that he was a civil servant, but he had gathered so many shares on the stock market. He was easily one of the richest guys on the stock market. And so I thought to myself, if this guy was a civil servant, was able to gather so much wealth on the stock market, it means I could do it. So I started buying shares. And as you know, I appeared in the top 10 or top 20 shareholders in a lot of countries.
A lot of countries. Okay.
Yeah.
So there was no stock selection. It was just you just getting inside. If you could buy a
no, I had a feeling, I always like to feel things. So I'd feel this counter is going to go far. This is solid. This is. So I had that feeling.
Doc, let's be serious. You're saying to us, you had a pot of money and you had this feelings about a particular stock.
Yes.
And then you would just buy it.
Yes, I would. And you see, I always have targets.
As
So,
Munorota,
I try to read a lot, and I try to learn as much as I can. And of course, I talk to people. And so in the end, what I've learned about finance, this is a personal thing.
Okay.
You have to do it yourself.
The research.
You can't trust someone else with your money. You must trust yourself, and you must control your money. That's what I've learned over the years. Because if you don't know, you're ignorant, and you just trust somebody, you are likely to lose your money.
That's very true.
But if you understand what you're investing in, and you must also have conviction of what you're doing, and you must have confidence, and you must have passions in investing. That's what I've learned.
So the producer thinks we should
move on.
So I'm gonna push you. But so you've now picked up. So in the 90s, you come back. You've picked up your style. You've picked up entrepreneurship.
Yes.
You started investing.
Yes.
You started getting involved with venture capitalism. Started
and real estate as well.
Real estate.
Yes.
Department.
Yes.
And then in the 2000s, something interesting happened, and we were discussing this. Is you broaden your view beyond just Zimbabwe. You have Guramatunhu Global Investment Fund.
Yeah.
I mean, you just picked up investing,
like a decade earlier.
A decade earlier.
You're a baby in this game.
Already, you're going global.
You see, Tinashe, I thought, remember I said to you, we as black people, we have it all. All these other races, there's nothing more special about them that we don't have. So my thinking is, I formed this Guramatunhu Global Investment Fund. And the idea was we could invest all over the world in two things, stocks and real estate. So my two boys, one being in Australia, the other in the States, the idea was we could buy stocks and real estate in Australia, in New Zealand, in the Far East, in other words, South Korea, Japan, China, India. And so the one guy would do that. The other guy in the States could do the States, could do Canada, Mexico, Central America, South America, Brazil, and Argentina, and Chile. And I would do Africa, the Middle East, and Europe. And then what I told the guys was that we could have board meetings twice a year, wherever summer was. If summer was in the Southern Hemisphere, we could pick any spot in the Southern Hemisphere, have a board meeting, which I'd pay for, maybe in a cruise boat or maybe in a hotel. And if it's in the north, we could go to Amsterdam or go to Reykjavik or whatever.
Is your lifestyle and your investments.
Yeah. We have to know how to invest. Why? Because as black people, we are poor, generally speaking. And I strongly believe we're poor because of the mindset.
Oh, wow.
So once we overcome that, we should invest like any other race, like the Jews do.
So, sorry, I have to rush this, but so you've picked up the global investment
Yes.
thing.
Yes.
Why in investments and not in eyes?
Optometry.
Yeah.
Well,
Why is it global investments and not global
Ophthalmology.
ophthalmology or eyes or doctor? Your doctor thing.
Good question. You see, if you look at very rich people in the world, lawyers or doctors, hardly do you get billionaires or multimillionaires just from law or just from being a doctor.
From selling your skill, basically.
Rich people are investors. They know how to invest. And if you know how to invest, you don't have to be doing it yourself. You just invest wisely, and other people work for you, and they create wealth for you.
Okay, fantastic.
That was my understanding.
All right. Okay. So that's what you pick up in that decade. There's another thing now that you pick up in that particular decade, which I'm sure your viewers will enjoy, is you pick up these habits, rich people's habits. You start dancing, you start traveling,
art.
scuba diving, buying art. Would you like to explain? Okay, we know it's the curiosity, but why these specific things?
Well, I don't even know whether they can say it's for rich people, because dancing is dancing. Any you go to the township, people dance. The rural areas, people dance. What happened to me was when I was in high school, I had this admiration for the Cuban Revolution. The fact that these guys were young, Castro and Che Guevara, but they created a society where everybody had health and education to the extent that they are Zimbabwe's population, but they export expertise, doctors, architects, engineers, and so on. So I thought these guys were young, but they had this idealistic view of you could create a society. So I said, one day, I was in high school, but remember, and I said, one day when I can go to Cuba, I'll go to Cuba. So I did go to Cuba when I could afford it. And I went there, and I just remember in a taxi from the airport into Havana. And I was talking to this taxi driver, and he told me that the best part of his life was spent in Angola, fighting in Angola. And Tinashe, okay, as I told you, I'm not a politician, but I just remember that Angola was almost gone by the South Africans. And they were saved by the Cubans. The Cubans shed their blood. Whatever happened to Southern Africa after that was because of the Cubans. Because remember that Battle of Cotocona Valley, when the South Africans were surrounded by the Cubans. And that's when it happened, when they said, okay, we will withdraw, but Namibia should be independent. South Africa must change and all this. And that's what happened because of the Cubans. And it's a small population. This shows you the power of the mind, the power of the leadership. When people are strong and visionary, what they can achieve. So anyway, this taxi driver says to me, oh, I fought in Angola. The best part of my life was in Angola. And I'm looking at him, the guy is finished. And I thought to myself, this guy, he sacrificed the best part of his life for us in Africa. We don't even realize that. Anyway, when I was in Cuba, in Havana, then I went to a club. And I saw the Cubans dance, and boy, do they dance. I mean, they dance from here. And despite all the economic problems and sanctions, these guys, I always call it the joie de vivre, the joy of life that they have. And I said to myself that day, I said, Solomon, you have to acquire these skills by hook or by crook. So when I come back, I looked for a dancing instructor, and I found one, Gavin Cooper, he's teaching St. George's now. So he taught me the basics. And I started, and the more I learned to dance, the more I loved it. And I said, you know what, I want to dance. And so I found myself, I went to Buenos Aires in Argentina, and I went there basically to learn tango and to know the history of tango. And I learned a lot, because then when I was there, I discovered that Buenos Aires is a big port. So sailors would be on the sea for months and weeks. They'd come to Buenos Aires. The first place they wanted to visit was the bordello, the brothel. And they'd sit and wait for their turn like they're in a doctor's surgery. And people don't know this, but 30% of the population of Argentina, Buenos Aires, was black. Today,
Yeah.
there's less than 1%. And
They
that's
pushed
how
them all to Brazil.
to Brazil, and some got. I was in a pub and we're drinking, and I asked one guy. I said, I said to him, I travel a lot around the world. I've never been to a place where you just don't see black people. What happened? And he said to me, my friend, look at the signs on the roads. See, they're named after the generals. He said they took care of blacks.
Wow.
So anyway, when the sailors came, the owners of the brothels, wherever you have black people, you got music, you got dance, you got innovation and the origin of music and dance. So the owners of the brothels went to the inner cities and invited black guys from the inner city to sing for these sailors who are waiting for their turn. So these are guys, rough, from the hood. And the guys started singing. Then they brought in ladies from the hood. And the ladies were very sassy. And they had red stiletto shoe. So they sang and then improvised the movement. Da, da. And then, was the lady who then ran her stiletto shoe up the man's leg, get between his legs and kick his balls to tantalize him. And then the guy would turn the lady like this. So that's why tango music is very erotic. But today, if you think of tango music, you think
So
about
are you saying
Argentina.
you found your eroticism later in your years?
This is a family show.
In
your younger days.
I'm here to keep you. I'm here to keep you in check. No.
Here's one of the things. Most of dance, especially Latino dance, came from Africa, actually. I remember going to a cabaret in Havana, and they had a cabaret where they sang in Yoruba, the original Yoruba, which even the Nigerians don't speak today.
All right.
It came from there. So all the Latinos talk about salsa, what bachata, cha-cha-cha, ramba, all these dances came from Africa. And so tango, most people don't know, it came from Afro-Argentinians, not from the white Argentinians that we see today.
All right.
No, yeah.
All right. So this is very interesting. And one, if you were a psychologist, which I'm not, but one could see the running theme of self-actualizing.
Yes.
Where you're getting in touch with your soul, which is, vividly different from Solomon at UZ taking care of his 5 other siblings, where you had to. Would you like to explain that transformation from where you had direct responsibility and you didn't have money in your pocket to this life where it's storied? I mean, you're traveling, you're dancing, you're scuba diving, just the transformation in one lifetime.
I think the answer, Tinashe, is just being open-minded and curious, and the desire, the hunger, the thirst to learn. You must always be hungry to learn. The world is huge, whether it's investments, whatever it is. I think we must learn. As you talk about art,
Yeah.
that's another field. And I think we should always be open to learn as much as we can.
All right. Okay. So this is something that Ranga is particularly interested in, which is you're now well known as an eye surgeon right across the world, in Zimbabwe, everywhere. Your work, Bindura University, even at the University of Zimbabwe, you're well known as an eye surgeon. What could you say to other doctors, especially the young doctors?
Now, before we get it, what makes you stand out? So I don't think there's any other doctor in this country who's as famous as you.
I don't know about that. I mean, I can't even say I stand out.
Oh, you certainly do.
All I know
job
is,
praise us in
yeah, all I know is any situation, for instance, you try to give whatever you can give your best. So I remember a time as chairman of Bindura University. When I was there, it was an opportunity I got, and it was difficult shoes to fit into. Was Professor Chitsang was the first chairman of Bindura University.
And he was a great man.
Yeah, he was a great man, and I still have respect for him. And so when I got there, so we had started this Guramatunhus Family Trust Scholarship Fund. So we thought, okay, again, making a difference to other people who don't have an opportunity. So we had orphans, underprivileged kids that we paid for. It's like 5 kids every year. So we end up with students at Chinhoyi University, at University of Zimbabwe, we still have some there, HIT, MSU, Solus University, NAST, and School of Mines. So it kids we were paying fees for. The second thing, they're trying to build a library, and they came to me, they came to the council actually, and they said, we need to build a new library, we need funding. So we bought bricks, first of all 10,000, then another 10,000 because the bricks were not enough. So then we started a school of optometry because I thought to myself, look, we don't have a school of optometry now. So that's when we did the private-public partnership between Optinova and Bindura University to start a school of optometry. I think the first graduates come out this year.
Wow.
Yeah, and Zondo Sikala, BDC, that they decided, the council, to name the school after me even. But of course, other things happen. But anyway, that's okay. And then because of what I'd done in Bindura, they started to put him on the council. I'd use that. Of course, I got kicked out there, but that's okay.
That's an interesting story, but maybe,
we don't have enough time.
No.
But that's philanthropy. So again, this is what
Oh, yeah.
rich people do. They acquire all these assets,
to give away.
Later on in their lives. And would you like to speak more to philanthropy?
Yeah. You said that's what rich people do. I don't think so. I think each one of us.
I mean, Bill Gates,
Sure, but that's another
Warren
level.
Buffett.
But at any level of life that we're in, I think we should think about the next person. Because believe it or not, wherever you are better off than some people. And I think it's incumbent upon us to help the next person who's struggling. And a lot of the students, I just got a young chap who was working here at Bonmache. He was pushing the trolleys and cleaning, and he had a place in India. So we helped him to go to India. So he sent me a message the other day. He says, how can I help you? I want to thank you so much for this. And I get this many times. And I said to him, the best thing to help me is for you to help the next person. If you do that, because we have to make this world a better place for others. And
so you see the need to open up opportunities for other people as well.
We should never say we wait until we are rich to do it. No. Wherever you are, you're better off than the other guy. So help the other guy.
Okay.
And we need to instill that culture in ourselves. This idea of waiting for aid or help from Europe, from America, we need to get this out of our mind, which to help us. This country's got enough wealth.
Okay. All right. So we're not going to discuss crypto because that's part of the investments. But what I want to discuss, especially in the last segment, is the next decade. Where is Dr. Solomon Guramatunhu? What are you curious about? What's going to happen in the next decade, or 2 or 3?
Well, you said you want to talk about crypto, but that's what I'm going to talk about. Right. Investments. Because right now, I'm so keen on that. And Tinashe, I know some people disagree with me. I believe in blockchain technology because I really believe this is where the whole world is going towards. There's no question about it in my mind. When I discovered crypto in 2020, and by the way, again, because of the learning process, I've joined a lot of investment groups, international groups. So I get information all the time and I'm learning all the time. And that's why I have this conviction within me that if we, as a country, as Zimbabwe, and as young people like yourselves, if
we're not young anymore.
Okay.
I've got a white
well,
beard.
I got some
He's got
young.
no hair.
We got some young.
We're not young.
Yeah,
If
we're not young anymore.
we don't understand blockchain technology, we're going to be left behind. I strongly believe that the next multi-millionaires, billionaires are going to come from crypto. Now, for me, it's not just a question of making money. It's what it can do. So my idea is to create this wealth, which means I can help a lot of young kids who had no opportunities and create opportunities for them. That's number one. Number two, I was telling you, I built a library and ICT center in my primary school.
Yeah.
Because I really want all the kids from ECD to use computers, to know about financial literacy, to know how to invest. In primary school, they must understand this. And I'm going to start off with my village where I come from. My sister has just built a beautiful house, 7 bedrooms. Each one of us has a bedroom there, en suite, and they got solar electricity, they got everything in the village. and we're going to develop, have macadamia nuts and an orchard. But I said, you can't be an island. It means the whole village has to look like us. So my idea is to prove to everybody that a villager in Zimbabwe can be like a villager in Switzerland or in Sweden.
You're a
And I
bit of
think
a
we do.
revolutionary.
Well, I don't know about that, but every
I
school.
mean, that's where your admiration for Cuba.
Maybe.
I mean, Bitcoin at your age.
Are you calling him old?
Well, I dance better than him, right? so it's all this that we wanted to achieve. Because, we have a limited lifespan, We're going to die, all of us, So I like to think that when my day comes,
You've emptied yourself. You've emptied everything.
Give it all. Yeah.
Okay.
All these youngsters now have opportunities. They become millionaires.
Let's talk about spirituality. And here specifically with your artwork. I know you support a lot of Zimbabwean art, our sculptures. What's the link there? The art and the spirituality. What's your...
Tinashe, I've been so privileged to realize the breadth and depth of artistic talent in this country. Okay, you've seen I collect lots of sculptures. I've been interested in first generation sculptors like Henry Munyaradzi, Luku Mkomberanwa, Bernard Matemera. I've been to Kuruwe, I've been to Nengenenge collecting. So I collect Sylvester Mbai. He's a good friend of mine, the old man. He comes here. And of course, the young ones like Dominic Benura got lots of his pieces over here.
Yeah,
and in fact, we do...
Perspective again, Benura is no longer young. Let's just
well, now, this is compared to the first generation, okay? And of course, I've been collecting paintings. I think you must have seen the one, Portia Joyera.
She's amazing.
The one, that auction in London, I think it was Cotton, or was it Phillips Gallery? They were auctioning her piece, and they were estimating that they would sell it for between 40 and 60,000 pounds. In the end, they sold it for 168,000 pounds to 800, which is like almost $200,000. Now, you could pick these pieces here in Zimbabwe for 5,000 or 10,000. Imagine you sell it for 200,000. We black people don't realize what we have.
There was a time not long ago, I think, you probably don't remember, but we actually went to an event where Portia was selling, I think it was $50.
Can you imagine? Imagine if you collected that at every
10 years or so.
When I used to live in that flat?
Yeah, 10 years.
Yeah. So here,
I do remember.
In my home here, it's really a place for art. We have classical music concerts here. We have jazz concerts here. Yuma Sikela was here. And the one I invited you on the group, we had that lady who was an investment banker with Investec. She based in London. She came here for ICAC. No, this one she's originally from Uganda, but now lives she was born in the UK.
Oh, right.
And her father was a diplomat there. And she was an investment banker turned art entrepreneur. So she's big into this. And then the Nigerian, her father is a very rich king. So we hosted her as well. But she has a gallery in Lagos and in LA. African art is a big buzz all over the world. And we have Moffat, the young guy who did that painting which was bought by Jay-Z. The guy is now famous. And we don't realize that. And he's here. He comes here. He's been here twice. We need to invest in this art. It's a big investment. And I've said to people, if we don't appreciate and invest in our art, we could be educated, we could be wealthy, but we are not enlightened. We need to get this straight. There's so much here. We should appreciate it. We should invest in it.
Can you say something about, I mean, you keep saying enlightened, but I think, because it's a special term that means something.
Yes.
To a Renaissance kind of person like yourself. What do you mean when you say enlightened?
We need to be awake.
But you show that.
Kumuka. Tingiti chakarara. For a very, very long time. Kati chumuka imanje. Tuna kuti aiwaka. Isusu ndisine nyaya yese. Ndisine bvudzi rinoita zvese zviri rangu marudzi. Ndisine ganda rekuti amarudzi anarakadaro isati unyani hatiti maskin cancer. Isusu ndine nyaya wanzi maedu, ma lips awaya, magara awaya. nyika yedu ndio ine upfumi hwese, tine madiamonds, tine gold, tine platinum, tine chrome, tine lithium, tine 60 different minerals. If ready reclaim it, you can grow anything. We are wealthy, but we are not realizing it.
Self-awareness.
Yes.
Yeah.
Takadzima kudai.
All right. This is a good time for us to end. Self-awareness. I think there are many running themes. And the idea is there's just so much that we've learned from you, Doc. And thank you very much for this privilege.
I've learned that he's been having concerts with you and not inviting me, but we'll sort this one out.
No, he did come to the cocktail party. He didn't come either.
I was somewhere else. Thank you very much, viewers. And, watch the show and expect more shows like this in the coming season. Otherwise, have a good evening.
Just one more thing. Wakomana kana makuya kumapati angu, corporate parties. Vieni madzimenyo nebvudzi ravo. Zvemawigi mawivi.